with Onward, my new show dedicated to helping ordinary people live extraordinary lives. You can catch me right here live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, as I speak to some of the world's most interesting people about a variety of topics, all dedicated to helping you change your life forever. Tonight, of course, we are expanding the show with a special Thursday night edition of Onward. My guest on this special show tonight is a multi-talented entrepreneur, one of the most positive and inspirational guys on social media. In addition to being a published author, he is also a life coach and the president of both Rethink Vision and Grow for Green Eateries. He is here with me tonight to discuss his inspiring new book, Have the Guts to Follow Your Guts. Talmadge Spicer, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, man. I love that introduction, man. Boom, got me right in the state. I'm
Yeah, I
ready.
love it. I love it. I love it, man. I really appreciate you jumping on. And look, we're here talking about your book, and I know that you say you have a mission to help 1 million or more people have the guts to follow their guts, right?
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
So go ahead.
So, for me, like for those of you watching tonight, I just want to say, like, I've been following Talmadge online for a good while. The guy's super positive, super inspirational. I love his videos. I love when he goes live. I always jump on his stuff. I love what he's putting out in the world. Found out he wrote a book, and we kind of chatted a little bit about that. And I was like, man, we gotta tell the world about what your mission and what you're doing. So, what I did actually. I downloaded the book from Amazon today. I read the whole book. It's. I don't think it's been since high school I read a whole book in one day. Okay, it's an easy read, filled with inspirational, motivational information. Just a wonderful story about Talmadge's life, man. So I appreciate you writing that book, and I just want to dig in, man, and kind of share with people about it. If you're watching, you got to get that book. It's on Amazon. You can get the paper version, or you can get the Kindle version, whatever works better for you. Go to Amazon. Maybe we can drop a link in the comments. And so people who want to order it, y'all got to get this book. Get this book. This guy knows what he's talking about. T Spice, they call you, huh?
T Spice, absolutely. My
I
birth
love it.
name is Talmadge Spicer, but some people have some trouble with that. So why not? Why not go the cool route? My
I love
father,
it.
his name is Spice. They call him Spice, so I'm T Spice.
Okay, I get it. So I'm from Louisiana, and I know you referenced spending a little bit of time in Louisiana, right?
Sure did. Sure
Yeah, so
did.
so in Louisiana, T just means little. For those of you out there that don't really know, so if you got a Bob and you got a Junior, it might be T Bob or T Dan or something like that, right? So T Spice, man, that's just like makes me feel like I'm growing up back in the bayous of Louisiana,
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm Little Spice there, huh?
Little Spice, Little Spice. I love it, man. All right, well, look, the book. I mean, there's just so much there. I love the way you wrote it. Such a story, style, fashion that you. I love the book, man. Tell me a little bit about kind of what inspired you to write this book before we get into it.
Right. So I always had this idea that I would eventually write this book, right? I
Hmm.
had the experience, and it was such a visceral experience in my life that I knew I wanted to share it in some form of fashion. And I knew
Hmm.
that overall, as my aspirations to become a speaker, author, and a coach and a mentor, I
Right.
would end up having to construct my story or have something that I can present to the world.
Right.
At the time that I wrote the book, however, I thought that I was so far off of the point in my life where I was actually going to write a book. But from having the thoughts, having the conversations, putting it out there, I'm an author or whatever, I ended up having a conversation with Kenny Jones, who is an author's coach,
Right.
I guess. So he said one thing to me that kind of shifted my mindset tremendously. What he said was, if you were to die today, what would you leave behind? And that got me to thinking, like, well, it doesn't matter that I'm not 83 years old, have 17 cars and a mansion and done this and done that. I have done things that I can put in a book and share my experiences and share my wisdom with somebody with the intention that it will help them out. And after all, just because I wrote this book and put all of this information in this book doesn't mean that I can't write another book.
Of course.
So if you purchase the book and you look on the first page, I say something like, here goes nothing. Right. So it fits perfectly into the theme of the book of just having the guts to follow your guts, going for it, rolling the dice and seeing what happens. I just, wrote a book.
100%, man. And I love that. I read that in the book. And like I said, I read the whole thing cover to cover. I read every word, loved it, man. I'm a big reader, and there's so many things that you mentioned in the book, books that we both read in common, the Napoleon Hill's work, Think and Grow Rich, Zig Ziglar stuff. A little bit outside of the regular professional development stuff, you also mentioned Forks Over Knives, which is a great book about the vegan lifestyle, right? So just so much cool stuff. You mentioned Ty Lopez and whatnot. So we've been on a similar path, a similar path of just personal development, wanting to grow and be the best that we possibly can be. And I think part of that journey is when we become the best that we can be, then we begin to inspire others, right? They see our journey, our path. And, so as I was reading your book, man, it got me jacked up, got me pumped up, and I started this show about 7 weeks ago now. And just like, if I would have read your book, I'd have started the show the next day, because it's just motivational. It's like, let's go, like, hey, we're only going to live one time. Like, are you going to do it or not? Right. And I don't think you use this term in the book, but we've read so much of the same stuff, about imposter syndrome.
Right. Oh my God. That's a big, yep.
Why don't you talk about that and kind of just talk about in terms of your own journey in writing this book. A lot of people don't do more, right? They don't have the guts to follow their guts because I think one of the roadblocks is imposter syndrome. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Imposter syndrome is one of the biggest roadblocks that you're going to come in counter with. And the craziest part about it is it's super sneaky. It's hard to detect. It shows up as, well, for me, especially with writing this book, it was like, well, what do I have to say? Or who's going to listen? Or I haven't done anything great or outstanding enough for anybody to even take interest in the book. And it makes you feel like you're not credible enough, that you're not worthy enough, that nobody's going to take an interest or a liking to what you have to say or what you have to offer. And it gets in the way because the way somebody else perceives your story and receives the information that you're giving off is you're not gonna be able to detect that from the inside out. I had a life experience. It was not fun at the time. It did not tickle, So
right.
It's something that kind of happened to me. If it was something that I was reading about versus going through it, I might have been experiencing it a little bit differently. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, I want you to take yourself out of yourself and realize that you're having a unique experience that is valuable to somebody who can't just jump out of their body and into yours.
Yeah.
Especially if they're in their comfort zone, and you're out here doing all these different things or whatever it is that you're doing, it's unique to you.
Right.
And it's therefore going to be valuable to somebody else. And you're credible. You're do it. You're ready.
I love it. And that's the thing. Most people just don't think they're ready. You said, for a while before you got, you ran into a couple of people who encouraged you otherwise. You said in the book, you felt like you needed to be an 83-year-old bazillionaire before you wrote a book and had something to say. But and I'm going to jump ahead to, I guess, chapter 7, where you're talking about traveling abroad. And I think it ties into this a little bit, right? Is you said, one of the best ways to overcome ignorance in the world is by experiencing other cultures, right? Is experiencing different foods and learning different languages. And I understand you picked up a little bit of Arabic at some point or another.
A little bit.
Don't
quiz me though.
I won't quiz you. I taught school for a bunch of years. I actually taught history, but no quizzes tonight, man. I'm just here to draw from your wealth of knowledge, But when we do travel and we have these experiences and we get to, learn from other people, it does open our minds and we understand and see, this is the part that really kind of came out to me with not just this book, but your whole persona, your whole essence is really that we're just human, right? We're all humans, and we all have our own individual story, and it's unique, right? And for us to go out and be able to share our story with other people, it's going to be, even if we don't think our story is a big deal, it's going to be motivational to other people. And I love that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to, because you bringing something up out of me when you say what you just said, that we're all just human. And I think that, the idea that we're special is like a double-edged sword, because to be special, you feel like you need to be doing something that is special or extraordinary in comparison to other people. And I would say that no, we're all special in our own ways, which makes us all the same. But if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, you might feel like, oh, well, that's interesting and this is interesting and I'm not interesting, when in fact we're all interesting in our own ways, which kind of conflicts with the idea that we're special. We're all human, and human is specially unspecial. I don't know what the word is.
I love it. That's true. No, you're right, man. We're all unique. We're all, and one thing that I love is as I talk to people, and I'm pumped about this show because I'm getting to talk to cool people like yourself who, share a lot like-minded ideas and who really just love life and want to help other people. That's what this whole show's about. Just helping people move onward, right? That's why I called it that. Like, I'm going to the top of the mountain, and I want to bring anybody who wants to go to the top of the mountain with me, man. And I know that's exactly what you're doing, and you've defined it. You said, I want, to inspire over 1 million people to have the guts to follow their guts. I love it. I love it. I mean, and then those people are going to inspire other people, right? I mean, it's like the butterfly effect of what you're doing, man. It can be just earth shattering, man. I love it. One thing that you kind of you hit on a lot that I very much agree with is things like your vibes, right? Your vibe determines your tribe, and you talked a lot of we might get into meditation. I've talked a lot about meditation on this show and whatnot. We might get into that, but law of attraction, right? I've talked a lot about law of attraction, and your vibe determines your tribe, and speaking positive thoughts. And a good friend of mine years ago wrote a book called Hung by the Tongue, right? The power of your words and your thoughts and things like that. So even though all of those things we can find when we read books like Think and Grow Rich, or you mentioned The Secret, right? Those things are great, but what you did was you put a very unique and interesting spin on all those things. Man, I've read tons and tons of personal development books, and I'm telling you, those of you out there in my audience who love personal development books, do not go to bed tonight until you go to Amazon and you order T. Spice's book, Talmadge Spicer's book, Have the Guts to Follow Your Guts. This is a classic, man. It's a classic that you put out there. Let me just kind of get into the book just a little bit so we can share a little bit of the content, some of your ideas, because they really are simple, but just impactful, right? So in chapter 1, you basically tell us, have the guts to tell the truth, right? You don't see that in a lot of personal development books. A lot of them talk about, like, let's sit and meditate for, hours, and let's visualize and let's manifest. Cool. All that stuff's cool, right? I love it. And in the book, you talk about manifesting your own reality, right? And I think we'd like to get into some of that those more advanced concepts a little bit later. But right now, let's just start in chapter 1. Tell me your thoughts on that, man. Have the guts to tell the truth. Go.
Have the guts to tell the truth. I started this book off with that because I had the idea that I wanted to progress through my life. So it's kind of in chronological order. So this is one of the first big lessons that I learned in my life. And I thought it was important because of the amount of courage that it took. I was raised in a household with a father who was more military style. What I say goes. There was no back and forth. I wasn't allowed to have input as often as I would like. But what do I know? I'm like 6, 7 years old.
Right,
But
right.
still my experience. So I'm a very curious and inquisitive person. I like to get into things and figure things out firsthand. And I've always been that way. And being that way has gotten me to a lot of trouble with my father, who's kind of like straight and narrow. If I say don't do it, don't do it. I'm gonna figure out a way to do it anyway, right?
He's a military guy, your father, right? From what
Yes,
you talk about, okay.
absolutely. So, not much tolerance for subordination. Okay,
Right, right,
you
right.
know. So he's a yeller, a screamer, whoopings, belts, and all that stuff. And as a young child, you want to avoid that at all costs. So I started to develop this habit of lying where, obviously I got into something that I wasn't supposed to get into. I'm not too clever at covering my tracks. And he would ask me about it, and I would say, no, it wasn't me. I don't know how that got like that. And I would be so fearful of a punishment that and now that I'm older, I was realizing that I was speaking affirmations and I was training my subconscious mind. But at the time, I didn't know. And I started to believe the lie. Like the lie, I would say it would have so much emotional power to it. And I would repeat it so often that I would believe it, right? Your subconscious mind, your brain doesn't know the difference between truth and false. If you repeat something, you're going to believe it. So I didn't understand why I did the thing that I wasn't supposed to do, even though I knew I wasn't supposed to do it. And I also didn't know why I was getting punished because I didn't do anything.
You had convinced yourself, you say this in the book, that you'd actually you lied so much about covering, what you were doing, that you actually believed it, right? And because you'd convinced your subconscious mind that it was true.
Right. And it was just unfair. It was just unfair.
So you go on later on in the book and you talk about as you grew and matured and learned, you talk about the fact that 95% of what we do every day is subconscious, right? And if we want to make real lasting changes in our life, we've got to reprogram our subconscious minds. Would you agree with that?
To the max. A lot of the thoughts that we think are the same thoughts that we thought the day before, and we think in cycles. And everybody's heard the term we're products of habit, right? So if you want to change, if you want to shift any of the results that you're getting in your life, it is absolutely imperative that you look at the root cause, which is your thought process, which is heavily related to the meanings and definitions that you've given to life early on in your development. If you don't examine that, I think that you're powerless to change much in your life, because a vast majority of it is just programmed into your brain. We've got to be cognizant of what we consume, when it's conversations, music, YouTube videos, whatever it is, content. That is what's implanting the thoughts and creating the reality that we experience on a daily basis.
Yeah, this wasn't in the book, but some videos I've seen and some discussions I've seen from you, going back, a ways you talked a lot about in this one particular post or video, I think, about the music you listen to, right, and the TV or movies you watch, right? I mean, if your life's not working out the way that you want it to work out, maybe you need to start thinking about what you're programming into your subconscious minds, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out, to make it simple and plain. I think that what can I offer here, as far as, because here's the thing, what is readily available, low hanging fruit, is not always going to be the best thing for you. The people that are in your inner circle when you were born, the people that you were raised around, not necessarily the people that are going to have the mindset of the type of people you need in your life to get to where you're going, right? The music that I find is readily available on the radio is free, no subscription needed, or you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to do anything for it. You don't have to go searching for it. You don't need to be particular about what you listen to. It's just there. That is the stuff that you want to question the most. Is this feeding my spirit? Is this uplifting me? Is this giving me the ideas that are aligned with my destiny? Or is this something that is just commonplace? Is this something
Mm-hmm.
that is aligned with, the mass media, uh, machine?
Sure. I love it. So go
I
ahead,
think it was
continue.
Zig Ziglar, somebody, I don't remember who said it, but they said that a lot of the stuff that we consume without paying attention to it is like bubble gum for your brain. So that's
Huh.
how I remember it. It's
Huh.
candy. It's
Hmm.
sweet, it grabs your attention, but the nutritional, value of bubble gum,
It's not
non-existent.
there. Non-existent. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. So if we want to live a better life, and this whole show, my whole show, it's about life transformation, right? People go on the top of the mountain and living the best possible life that they possibly can. Um, so what would you recommend? I mean, in fact, I think that you're basically saying that let's build a life that we want to live. Let's intentionally or be intentional about the life that we want to live instead of just allowing life to happen to us, right? Do
Right.
you feel like a lot of people out there just letting life happen to them?
Absolutely. Most people are letting life happen to them, and that's because they don't realize the power that they have. I like to say live a life by design instead of by default,
I love it.
right?
Live a life how would you recommend someone do that? I mean, if someone, I mean, this works for all kind of things, right? I mean, if people are unhealthy, if they're having relationship problems, money problems, do you think that you can solve all of those issues through this one philosophy?
100%.
tell, tell me more about that, man. If somebody wanted to create a life by design instead of by default, what would you recommend that someone do? How do they get started in that?
Number one thing that you need to do is sit down and answer this one question. What do you want? And I think that a lot of people don't even get that far. We're so focused on what is available, what can I get, what
Hmm.
can be given to me,
Hmm.
what can I reach? But we don't have enough faith, enough courage to say, no, what is the optimal situation like? What can I create that doesn't already exist? So that's the first thing I would do, is get in touch with what you truly want. Then figure out why you want it. Why is this important to you? And from that point, I think if you're serious about living a life by design, it's going to be important. It's going to be required and mandatory that you start developing yourself into the type of person who is vibrationally aligned with what it is that you want. But until you figure that out, until you answer those questions, you just really don't have any reason to
Hmm.
go searching, for the optimal version, for the higher version of yourself.
Do you think that some people are maybe scared of to envision a life that by design because maybe maybe they've got either imposter syndrome or maybe they think, well, it happened, T Spice, it worked for him, it worked for this guy or that guy. I don't know if it can work for me. I don't know if I could really achieve those goals and those dreams. I mean, what would you tell someone like that who has limiting beliefs? I guess you want to talk a little bit about limiting beliefs?
Absolutely. So if you're not ready to overcome your limiting beliefs, you don't have a big enough reason why, right? If you can picture yourself living the rest of your life exactly where you are right now, making no progress, no little progress, then I would examine exactly why you're even entertaining this conversation. I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, you know that there's more out there for you. You have a dream that's bigger than your job, you know. But if you're afraid to lose what you have, then you don't want it that bad enough.
Hmm.
Because when you want it bad enough, every loss becomes a lesson. See, that's I guess that's my insurance policy, to having the guts to follow your guts, is
Hmm.
realizing and knowing that, becoming convinced that no matter what you do, you're only going to get one of two outcomes. That's either going to be a lesson or a blessing. You're either going to succeed or you're going to learn. That is it. Once you become convinced of that, then there's no thought about losing. What if it goes wrong? What if it goes no, just do it. Just do it, because you're either gonna win or you're gonna learn.
It's good stuff, man. And I know you also talk a lot about confidence. And one of the limiting beliefs that people have a lot of times when, they may have goals or dreams or whatever it might be, they want to start that business or they want to be an entrepreneur or whatever it might be. Sometimes people think maybe they're not confident enough or they're waiting to build up confidence. You talk a whole lot, and in the book you say, confidence isn't something that comes first. Confidence is something that you gain after you endeavor to do whatever it is that you're going to do. You don't have to win, you don't have to succeed, but you go do the thing, and maybe you'll win, maybe you won't, but you're going to gain confidence. Tell me a little bit more about how you work. I know you work with people, you work with clients. What do you do to help people build up confidence and with their in pursuing their life's goals?
Right. To build confidence is a 3-step program for me, right? First, we want to develop clarity. With clarity, you have a vision. You have done, like I said earlier, you've decided what it is you want, why you want it, what's going to keep you driving, what's going to keep you searching for opportunities to get what it is you want. You have to know why. So get clarity first. The next step is you want to get consistent. You want to take consistent action. So we get clarity, then consistency, because once you begin to act on a thing, like I said, you're only going to get 1 or 2 outcomes. You're going to get a blessing or a lesson, right? So now we're taking consistent action towards the goal. We're trying this out, trying that out, seeing what works, what needs to be fixed, and overall gaining a better picture of the path, a better vision of the path that we imagined in the first step. And the last part is confidence, because you take what you learn, you take what your vision was, you compare it to what you learned from taking consistent action, and now you know that I can do this by just doing it.
Just doing it. I
Yeah,
mean,
just doing it.
it's the old Nike slogan, right? Just go do it, right?
Right.
Just do it.
Right. We were getting started on the podcast, and you're like, yo, are you ready? You have any questions? Let's do it.
Hey, let's just do it.
Let's
Let's
do it.
go, man. Let's roll
Yeah.
and get it done. So that's a great 3-step process, that you shared with the listeners tonight, and I appreciate that. It reminds me of something you said in chapter 1 of the book. For those of you who might just be jumping on, I'm talking with Talmadge Spicer tonight. We're talking about his brand new book that just came out. It's on Amazon. It's Have the Guts to Follow Your Guts. It's a great book. I read the whole book, every single word of the book. Cover to cover. I've read tons of personal development books. You guys, whether you've ever read a personal development book or you've read them all, go get this guy's book. I honestly believe it'll change your life. He is on a mission to help 1 million people have the guts to follow their guts. I love it. In chapter 1, Talmadge, you're talking about telling the truth, and we talked about that. Some of it I think applies to this 3-step process that you just talked about. When you're setting goals, and this was very poignant, I thought, when I was reading it, that some of telling the truth is not just telling the truth to other people, but some of it's telling the truth to yourself about what you really want and about who you really are. And I think sometimes people set goals, or they say, well, this is my why, or this is, people talk about, what is your big why? But if you're not really honest with yourself about what exactly means something to you in your life, I think you're doing yourself a great disservice, and you're probably, when times get hard, you're not going to stick with it. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, in addition to what you're saying there, fear is a very sneaky devil, and it's hard to identify in a lot of cases. And sometimes we set goals that are only to avoid an outcome that we don't want, and I don't recommend doing that. So it's important, when you're setting a goal, when you're setting your mission and your purpose for your entire life, to find the why, but then go ahead and question that why about 7 times. So why am I doing this? Why is that important? Why is that important? Why do I want that? Why do I want that? And you want to get to a point where your why reason is so much bigger than yourself that you can't not do the thing. See, my mission is to inspire 1 million people to have the guts to follow their guts. That means there's 1 million people waiting for me to show up. And why? Because I believe that when you believe in yourself, you make the world a better place. And what does the world need more than anything else? It's love. love for the world around them, but self-love as well. And with self-love, I equated that to having confidence, because when you love yourself, what do? You trust yourself. When you
Mm-hmm.
trust yourself, you trust other people. When you trust other people, it's going to be less headbutting. It's going to be more sharing, more giving, and I feel like there's nothing more important that I could be doing with my time than helping people love.
That's what it's all about, man. That's why we're vibing together. And you said, your vibe determines your tribe, and that's kind of how we got hooked up here. And man, I love what I'm doing. And being honest, I wanted to start a podcast for 2 years. I wanted to start this kind of show for about 2 years, and I was too scared, man. It's tough, to put yourself out there and do it. But one day I just figured, what? There's a lot of people out there who need to hear not necessarily my message, but your message and the message that other positive, inspiring people have to share with the world. And, I didn't feel like I was ready when I got started, but I know that I have a mission to help change people's lives. Right. So I just jumped in and got started. And that's kind of what you're telling people to do. Um, so let me jump back to chapter 2 here. Once we get that real why, so I think you and I have very similar passion, a very similar purpose that we feel like in life. I believe that my success in life is going to come from helping other people find success. That's just what I'm
Right.
passionate about, and I know that's what your passion is as well. So once we define that purpose, that passion, we know what it is, that why we're supposed to get out of bed every morning. You get into talking about how important decisions are, and you actually said that one of the biggest differences between wealthy people and poor people is that wealthy people make hard decisions, and they do it quickly and they do it efficiently. You want to talk to us a little bit about how important decisions are? You actually used the expression saying that we should strengthen that decision making muscle.
Right. Because, and this is something that I've had to address within myself, and it is, the name of the chapter is "Have the Guts to Decide," because when you have a tough decision, a part of you, I don't know if it's for everybody, but a part of you just is like, I can't figure this out right now. Let me put it off. Let me distract myself. And by doing that, by the failure to make a decision is the failure to design your life in that moment, right? So it's important to realize that you do have a choice. That's first. A lot of people don't feel like they have a choice. I feel like everything is a choice, you know. Um, and I'm pausing here because I'm also like playing with this new idea, this new theory of determinism. Well, it's not new, but I've been looking into determinism, but it
Mm,
fits in pretty well, but not exactly. But
mm-hmm,
anyway, having the guts to decide means that you're going to choose a path instead of saying, oh, I have to go to work, or I have to do
mm-hmm,
this, I have to do that,
mm-hmm,
I don't have a choice, I'm
mm-hmm,
obligated. Obligation is not love. But
mm-hmm,
realizing that you have a choice and that you can design your life is the first step towards doing that. And then the second step would to be to actually do that and to realize how every decision that you make is going to be a domino effect in your life.
mm-hmm,
We tend to put off the important decisions until it either takes care of itself,
mm-hmm.
the option no longer is available, or we decide to do what's easy. And if you decide to do what's easy, your life is going to be hard. If you decide to do what's hard, your life is going to be easy. So this chapter is all about helping you build a relationship with micro and macro decisions. You have the power to decide what you focus on from a second to second basis. Also, you want to realize when something is not that it's too hard to make the decision, but it's not worth your focus and your energy, and to decide to refocus on something that is more effective. That whole chapter is all about choosing your path in the moment and
Mm-hmm.
not letting it go up to, just a coin toss.
So there you go. So again, we're just kind of reiterating the theme here that we really do have the right as human beings on the planet these days, God put us here, and we get to design our life, man. And a lot of people, I don't know if people just don't get that, or if they don't think about that, or they're just, I think so many people just go along with whatever the status quo is, and I got to have a job, and maybe don't mean to step on toes here, but maybe I don't like my spouse, or I don't like the person I'm with, or if you don't like your job, hey, you can quit those things, man. You can
Right.
get rid of that. You can, if there's, it's 2020. We're living in America. Most people watching this, and if there's something that you don't like about your life, design it, change it, right?
Right. It's the idea of obligation that's so closely related to fear that keeps us in that position. But if you are actively eradicating fear in your life, you realize that obligation is just as much of an illusion
Mm-hmm.
as the fear is.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
One thing that you said in the book I found very interesting is you talked about it was important to take responsibility for the good, bad, and the ugly in your life. And you actually said something to the effect of basically taking blame and just getting rid of blame, because sure, lots of bad things happen to people that are not their fault, but um, we can't control those things. We can't control what other people do to us, or where we're born, or how tall we are, or whatever it might be, right? But
Right.
what we can do, talk a little bit about that, about replacing you know blame, not placing blame, but taking responsibility. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I just wrote a post actually, and I hope I don't trigger everybody, but I wrote a post. It said, people who like to blame are the same people who like to be lame. It's corny,
Ooh,
but but
it's
it's
poignant
true
though.
because yeah, because when you blame somebody, you give up the power to influence a thing that
Hmm.
you're unhappy about, right?
Hmm.
And I look at responsibility as not taking fault, but understanding that you have the ability to respond. And I don't
Hmm.
know how many times we've heard that, but it's so true, because when you feel as though you're a victim to something, you give away your power to
Hmm.
change it, to influence
Hmm.
it. If it's somebody else's fault why you are where you are, it's up to that somebody to change before you can be where you want to be. But if
Hmm.
you look at the part that you play in every situation and experience that you have in your life, you can start to shift how you interact and respond to your environment. And that is going to influence your results 100%.
It's good stuff, man. So, you kind of just talking about the fact that when you take responsibility, sure, bad things happen to people, but when you take responsibility for the things that you can change in your life, that's when you actually begin to empower yourself.
Right.
And that's what
100%.
and that's when you begin to realize, hey, I can create a life by design. It doesn't matter where I was born, or how much education I have, or whatever it is. If you have the will, and you're willing to put in the work to, you know, do the things you need to do, you can create whatever life it is you want to create.
Absolutely.
It's all about
All up in
empowerment.
there.
So talk to me a little bit about taking the opportunity. I know that um, I know that sometimes we look at people who are successful and we think, well, they had it easy, or they got lucky, or they're in the right place at the right time. In the book, you kind of argue, no, like opportunities plentiful. It's all over the place, especially like I said, 2020. In America, we've got so much opportunity, and the difference between people who do very well and people who maybe miss out on that opportunity is that people jump on that opportunity. They're ready for it. Talk a little bit about that.
Right, right. So, if you've already taken the preliminary steps, if you've already gotten clear on what it is that you want, you're starting to attract different opportunities that are aligned with you. The
Hmm.
problem is people aren't looking for what they want, they're looking for what is available, right? So they're going to
Mm-hmm.
be overrun with either overrun with opportunities or have
Mm-hmm.
a belief that opportunities are scarce and that none exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are
Mm-hmm.
two very dangerous problems to have. But when you are attuned, when you are aligned to what your true passion is and your desires are, and you find an opportunity, it is up to you to take it. Now you have to have the guts to take that opportunity and go for it. In my book, I talk about the opportunity I had to move to Idaho and start my own business.
Right.
It was very, very scary. I mean, I was more excited. To be honest, I was more excited about it.
Sure.
But I had already decided that I was going to be an entrepreneur, that I was going to raise enough money to overcome my student loan debt of $150,000. So when they said move to Idaho, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and you only had 3 days, right? You only had 3 days to move. Is it correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I hesitated at first. Let me be completely transparent and honest. I'm moving clear across country from New Jersey to Idaho.
Sure.
But the second time that opportunity came around, I'm super lucky to get it the second time. But yeah, that second time I had 3 days to pack up, drive across country, and I did.
So part of taking the opportunity is being ready, like in chapter 2, to make that decision, right?
Right.
And how are you ready to make that decision? You have to know what your goals are. You have to know what your purpose is. And when you know what your purpose is and your goals are, then when opportunity does come, and it does, then you got to be ready to make that quick decision. And that's what you did by moving to Idaho.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I did that, didn't look back at that time. But yeah, if I wasn't aligned, I would have asked for advice. I would have listened to other people. Nobody, there's not one person in my life at that time that would have understood what I was doing. Not one person. So how can you be out of line with yourself, not be sure of yourself, and still, take opportunities such as this one? We wait on the environment to give us a sign. I'm sorry.
We do, and we want to call anyone who will listen, and we call our friends and our family and ask them their opinion. And probably that's the worst thing we can do, right? I mean, a lot of people do it, but I think what you're talking about here, this whole thing is self-awareness, right? About knowing who you are, getting in touch with who you are, understanding, what exactly it is you want out of life, not apologizing for it. And then you make decisions based upon the true essence of what you are and what you're supposed to really do in life.
Right.
And sometimes that might be leaving an opportunity, right? Sometimes it's jumping on an opportunity when it comes, but sometimes we have to leave things that were in our lives that no longer serve us. You want to talk a little about that?
Absolutely. It's a two-sided coin. I think the common denominator is, just like you said, self-awareness, having a relationship with yourself, knowing that how you feel, what you think, and you're driving the ship, you're the captain of the ship, and you need to trust yourself. You need to have confidence. You need to have the guts to follow your guts. So I didn't want it to be too one-sided to where I'm saying, okay, you have to jump on every opportunity and you have to stick it out, and you have to know yourself. So knowing myself is what got me into the opportunity, and learning myself is what also got me out of the opportunity. The common denominator is the relationship that you have with yourself. So when it's serving you, when it is aligned with your goal, or if it seems like it is up front, go ahead and take the opportunity. But as soon as that changes, again, we're not going to be a slave to obligation. There's no obligation. That. Obligation is fear. Just because I took the opportunity doesn't mean that I'm stuck with it.
So one thing, I was just looking through my notes here because I took tons of notes reading your book today, man. I'm telling you, again, for those of you just jumping on, I'm talking with Talmadge Spicer here, T-Spice. He just wrote an amazing new personal development book. You guys got to go get. It's on Amazon. Do not go to bed tonight before you go and order this book. I'm telling you, I've read tons and tons of personal development books. It's one of the best ones I've ever read. By the way, those of you who are hanging out with us live right now, I appreciate that. Give us a hashtag live. And if you are on the replay, hit us with a a hashtag replay if you're hanging out. We got quite a few people hanging out live, so let me see some hashtag lives going on there. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with T Spice. T Spice, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I'm loving doing this show, man. Getting to hang out with people like yourself. It's just a cool thing. But I want to jump back to, I was looking through my notes because I just took tons of notes on your book, man. Hey, okay, so my daughter Brooke, I appreciate you. She's watching. She just dropped a link to your book in the comments. So for those of you watching, look in the comments. There's a link to Talmadge's book. Right there, y'all order. Do not go to bed tonight until you order his book. It will change your life, I promise. So we're talking about both taking the opportunity and we're talking about leaving an opportunity. One quote I wrote down that you said was, integrity is less about keeping your word and more about staying true to you. Man, when I read that, I was like, where's my pen? I got to write that down, man. Talk to me a little bit about that, man. I mean, it's self-awareness, right? It's staying true to you. Talk to me about that idea.
Right. Because it's a hard pill to swallow, because especially us as entrepreneurs, we have a high value. We place a high value on integrity, but we fail to realize that if your heart's not in something, you're not going to show up as your best self in that thing. So I think integrity is more about being honest when something is no longer for you, when you might have to go back on your word, and just being honest about it. I think that's harder to do than just suck it up and say, oh, I'm a man of my word and I'm obligated to this thing now. And you go into the thing and you screw it up because you're not really in it the way you were when you first signed up, or whatever the situation was. I think that if you can step down, if you can say, okay, this person might be a better fit for this opportunity than I am, you're putting yourself aligned with the greater good. Somebody else gets an opportunity. They love it. They're jazzed up. They're excited. They're pumped. They're going to go and execute, rather than you just staying in a place that is not for you. That's like staying in a relationship that isn't for you just because you said, I love you. No, I can love you from afar. My love is unconditional. The relationship, however, has conditions. We have to be in this together. It has to work. It has to click. It has to flow. And I don't want the word integrity to be the reason why you slip into obligation, because obligation is fear and it's not aligned with love.
Well, I love that. And you're talking about, both you and I agree on the fact that you and I as individuals, and we're also trying to help encourage and push other people to live out. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, but we're trying to be the highest version of ourselves that we possibly can be. And you kind of address that in the book where you say, say no to being okay, right? Tell me a little bit more about that. I have a saying I used to tell my daughters when they were growing up. I used to tell them, good enough is never good enough. Never. Right. And when I read this chapter today, I thought, I used to say that all the time. Tell me a little bit about your ideas on that. It's that we need to say no to okay. What's that mean?
That's another one, man. These are heavy hitters, and they knocking me over the head too. As you bringing them back on, like, I said that. No, so have the guts to say no to okay is what I want to assert to people that go about their life saying, oh, I'm just fine, or this is all right, or I'm managing, I'm making it. It's a hard thing to risk or sacrifice what is okay, what is safe, and what is secure for what truly excites you, because there's a fear that you're going to lose everything, right? But being in an okay situation isn't anything to preserve. If you're in a perseverance state, then you're not growing. If you're not growing, then you're dying. So I want to talk about my idea about being realistic. I feel like being realistic is just a sorry excuse for being pessimistic. And I think that it's related, because a lot of the people that are just seeking to be fine are the people that are just saying, oh, I'm being realistic. And the only time you talk about being realistic is when you're talking about something that you can't do. You never talk about being realistic when you're like, realistically, I can take over the world. You never talk about it when it's something optimistic. So being fine is just about persevering through getting less than you deserve, and you know it. If it wasn't the case, you would say, I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm growing. And that is what you need to say yes to. But in order to be able to say yes to that, in order to realize the opportunities and experience the opportunities that allow you to say yes to growth, you have to be able to say no to, being stagnant.
Sure.
And that's probably one of the hardest things a lot of people have to do.
So
Security.
I think a lot of people, I don't know if people think about this or not, but I've thought about it a lot, and I believe that exactly kind of what you said. If we're not moving forward in life, we're moving backwards, right? I think we're always in motion, right? It just depends on, are we moving forward or are we moving backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about that. You said, about moving forward and whatnot. In the book, you say, "Hey, we're not a tree." What do you mean by that? We're not a tree.
That means you can move. You can move. You don't have to stay in the same place. You can relocate. One of the chapters is have the guts to choose your environment,
Mhm.
and that was inspired by my move not only to Idaho but to California. And the sole reason that I moved to California was for sunshine and palm trees. I moved here because I wanted to. And when I have conversations with other people, that's kind of like a shocker because they expect you to say, well, I had a job opportunity out here, or a relationship brought me out here, or something. Like, no, I came out here because this is where I wanted to be. And I think that that
Mhm.
is valuable to anybody who does have this idea of where they want to be, but they get in their own way and say, well, rent is super high, or weather conditions over here, or whatever the case may be. Forget all of that stuff and go where your heart, wants to lead you. Right. So that's what that's about. You're not a tree. You can.
Life by design, right? And that it could refer to your physical location, it could refer to your job, it could refer to a relationship or anything else that you're not happy with in life. Get up and change it, right? Get up and move away from it, right? And I love that you've been doing that. Earlier we kind of hit on meditation a little bit. Is that something that you do? Is something you practice?
Is one of the biggest things that I practice. It's super important. It's my favorite part about meditation was, the practice allowing me to separate myself from my thoughts and my emotions so that I can observe them and know that I am not them, and I don't have to be controlled. I don't have to react to every thought and every emotion, no matter how you know, omniscient it is in my experience at that time. It might take over my whole mind, but if that happens, I'm allowed to take 2 steps back and go, wow, that's interesting that I'm thinking that right now. Where did that come from?
I love it. That's good stuff. So where did meditation come into your personal growth journey? I mean, have you been doing that for a while?
I started doing it around 2014. So when I
Got it.
talk about moving to Idaho,
Hmm.
when I started realizing, my level of happiness and excitement start to slip, I start looking for different ways to get it back, and meditation came up. And my initial experiences with it were one of two things would happen. I would either fall asleep, or or my thoughts would just be all over the place. You get frustrated and you stop doing it. But from continuing to just press through and practice and learn more about meditation, I came across this idea that you're not to clear your mind. That's not the goal of meditation, but instead it is to observe your thoughts. So they painted a picture, this guided meditation painted a picture of me sitting in a park and watching my thoughts
Hmm.
play in a playground like they're kids. No
Hmm.
judgment, no control, just observation. So I do that. I started doing that, and the effects of meditation started to take over. I started to pretend my thoughts were like passing clouds, and they were allowed to
Hmm.
come and to
Hmm.
go. And
Huh.
I did not need to, yeah, I did not need to react to them. And that allowed me to start to choose my thoughts, which led me to my own picture that just came to me without any guidance
Hmm.
of my mind being more like a train station where I have trains going this way and trains going that way. Let's call them trains of thought, right?
Huh.
And and
It's good
I got
stuff, man.
to and sitting on the platform, staying on the platform, I got to see the thoughts come into the station and leave, and I got to choose which ones I got on. And that's important because each train was going to a certain destination. So
Hmm.
if this train is going to Lexington and I didn't want to go to Lexington, I didn't have to get on that train. Super important.
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
train is going towards Wall Street, Wealthville, or whatever, abundance,
Hmm. Hmm.
happiness. Let's get on that train,
Hmm.
and we do that all day. The problem is without meditation, that process takes place, but it takes place subconsciously. We don't even
Hmm.
realize we're hopping on this train and that train, and we're all over the place. And we don't even, it's like driving on autopilot.
Man, that's good stuff. So I bring up the meditation, and man, I'm trying to bring this stuff to the world, but I'm sitting front row, man. I got some popcorn, just eating. I'm taking notes. I'm enjoying the show, man. That's why I'm doing it, and I love you sharing these thoughts, and I love talking to people who are passionate about growth and development and all that stuff. So that's a really interesting perspective you have on meditation. So my thoughts on that is we're talking about creating a life by design. I mean, that's I think if there's one overarching theme of your book, it's hey, you can have the life that you want if you're willing to take responsibility for yourself, decide what you want, and put in the work. You really can have anything you want in life. So what I'm looking for is kind of the connection between meditation and creating that life by design. Do you do any visualization? And I know that you've talked in the book, and I've heard you talk a couple of times about manifesting different things. So you want to talk about how either visualization and or manifesting can help us to create that life that we desire?
Absolutely. My first experience with visualization was with my first vision board, and I was super excited to get going with creating a vision for my life, and I went all out. Well, the very first one was just on some poster board and some magazine clippings, the typical vision board. But my second one, I went all out. I got a chalkboard, got pins, I decorated it, I painted it. I really put a lot of time and effort into it. And when I saw that certain things were becoming I was seeing them more often, I knew that I was getting closer and closer. One of the things on my vision board was the Jaguar F-Type, and
Hmm.
I saw none of them in New Jersey. I see them everywhere here in California. And every time I'm reminded, you're doing something right. And I don't care if I never get a Jaguar. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly that I will, but it's so valuable to me to just constantly be reminded by things in the external world to tell myself, yo, you're doing the right thing, bro. Like when I see numbers 412 everywhere, this I know that this is all a part of your RAS, your reticular activation system, and your brain goes and finds the things that it thinks are important to you. I understand that,
Hmm. Hmm.
but the meaning associated with it in my mind, I think is very positive, is very motivational, is very inspirational. It keeps me going. So when I find myself in a nice house and I know that I have a mansion on my vision board and I feel as though I'm getting closer to it, I think it all comes full cycle for me, and it causes me to act in ways that create that reality. So no, I may not have $1 million right away, but I did write a book. I
That's
do
right.
have a
That's right.
podcast. I do
Yeah.
have a coaching program. I do have these things. So I cannot deny the fact that I'm on my way. And I
Hmm.
think that right there is enough reason to start a vision board or to start, practicing visualization. I also go on YouTube. I watch this channel called Vibo, and it's super vibey. VYBO.
Okay.
They have billionaire lifestyle visualizations, and the background music is like chill hop, lo-fi. If you like chill hop or lo-fi, is
Hmm.
real relaxing music. And sometimes I watch a video that has affirmations on top of it, and that's really cool while I'm awake. But the number one thing that I do right now is I listen to affirmations right before I sleep. Matter of fact, let me grab this.
T-Spice is jumping off here for a second to go get something about a vision board, but we're talking about the importance of affirmations, and one of the things that I think you know this, and I'm just kind of bringing it out for our viewers here. It's very important for us to create that thought or the feeling, right? It's feelings. We can write it down, we can put it on a vision board, but we've got to almost convince our subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something in the natural world and something in the spirit world. So when we truly convince ourselves and we have the elevated emotions that hey, I'm already there, I'm already living that life, and you walk down the street, whether it's manifested physically or not, whether you drive in that Jaguar or not, when you start to get it in your mind that it's really yours, and you're supposed to have it, and you do have it, you just don't see it yet, then the law of attraction begins to bring those things to us. Would you agree with that?
100, 1,000%. There's no other way to explain it. I wrote down, I've gone to Dubai by September 2017, and I was in Dubai. The universe will make a way. I listened to one thing that comes to mind right now is it was a talk that Will Smith was giving, and he was like, just decide. And once you decide, the universe will make a way. It will conform to your decisions. And that's what's that's what's been my experience. And I was just testing it out. What's the most extravagant place on earth that I can possibly go? Let me write that down. Where do I actually want to live? I'm gonna write that down. And I ended up moving to California. I manifested a trip to Dubai. I manifested an iPhone 7 way back then, but now I have a newer phone. All of these different things were, I believe, products of my ability to, or my courage, to say what I want, write it down, and believe in it. I think that if we can just gain that, that's a life by design right there.
Yep. So have the courage, to you've got to be honest with yourself, right? And you got to decide what you truly really want with some self-awareness. Then you got to make those decisions. What we got going here, man? That's what you're jumping off camera to go. You going skiing tonight? Was that with some what you got going there? Tell me about that.
So this is a sleep mask, and what I was gonna say was this was the most powerful tool that I use for manifestation and reprogramming my subconscious mind, because you wear this at night, right when you go to sleep, your brain goes into a mode called theta mode, right?
Okay.
And that's the time right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up. That's the time where your brain is most susceptible to suggestions, right? So that's the most effective time to listen to affirmations, and you can record your own affirmations. I listened to a Bob Proctor one, that it's wealth affirmations, healing affirmations, all these different things. This has a Bluetooth speaker, it has Bluetooth headphones in there. So, sleep affirmations every night.
I love it.
And it works. It works. It's not something that you experience consciously, but there's just a different energy about you, how you walk, how you talk, how you hold yourself, the different thoughts that you have. It's not like I'm thinking I'm rich all day, but instead I feel wealthy. And if I was to be confronted with like a scarcity thought, money, I can easily be like, okay, I see you, scarcity. Not today.
Yeah.
Relax. So that is
I'm not getting on that train of thought, huh?
not today. Not today. I actually have these available too, because I wanted to make it easier, and I knew that because I loved it so much, it would come up in conversation. So these are also available on UncleSonnyProject.com. It's like the first thing on there.
Got it.
And if anybody's interested in that stuff at all, it's available.
So I know we haven't talked much about that. It's mostly been talking about the book, but you wanna plug the Uncle Sonny Project a little bit?
Yeah, the Uncle Sonny Project. So the Uncle Sonny Project is the overall it's a nonprofit organization. It's an incentive to support people in building a relationship with themselves. I'm looking to collaborate with as many thought leaders, coaches, mentors, and consultants as I possibly can to help shift the consciousness and take us to that new level. I think we're in a very pivotal time in our life, in our human history right now. As you can see, everything is all topsy-turvy, and I think
Mm-hmm.
this is when, you know, humanity needs leaders more so than any other time in my lifetime anyway.
Yep.
So that's what the Uncle Sonny project is all about. UncleSonny.com offers different, you know, merchandise to help support the mission. One of my favorite products on there, aside from the sleep mask, is my Love shirt, right? And the purpose behind the Love movement is to remind people to first love yourself. I don't have it on right now, but it says love. First love yourself so that you can love the entire world, because we talk a lot about self-love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's super important. But you got to
Right.
remember that the reason why you're loving yourself is so that you can love other people, so that you can give from
Totally.
your overflow, right? Don't love
Totally.
yourself just for the sake of self-love, because that's not self-love at all when you get into it, because we're all connected. We're all part of the same thing.
Yep.
We're all one. Self-love is loving everybody, you know. So that's
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
idea behind that. It's all available on UncleSonnyProject.com.
All right, I love it, man. So, y'all go check out UncleSonnyProject.com. You've got the Bluetooth sleep mask that you can listen to your. I'm gonna have to go get a Bluetooth sleep mask so I can. I just listen to the ear pods and whatnot, the AirPods.
Uh-huh.
I listen to some affirmations, when I go to bed at night from time to time. But man, this is really, really good stuff. And there's a lot of people out there. Real quick, we still got a lot of people hanging out here with us. So if you're still hanging out, you've been here all along. Give me a hashtag still here for my warriors who've been hanging out with us the whole time here. I appreciate you guys. Man, Talmadge, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. You still got a few minutes to hang out with me a little bit
For
longer?
sure.
All right,
Can
I
I
love
move
it, man.
in? Can I just
Oh,
move
come
in?
on, come on, let's do it, man. I love it. I'm just looking for people who want to ride with me and change the world. And you're exactly the kind of people I want to ride with, man. I
Oh man,
love
I'm
it.
so excited.
So tell me a little bit. I mean, we're sitting here, we're kind of talking about your story, and we're saying that you know I think if you're going to know what your mission is, and once you figure out what your mission is, or maybe part of figuring out what your mission is it's in your own story. Somebody once said that your mess is your message, right? So tell me a little bit about why you feel like it's important for people to share their story with the world.
Right? Have the guts to share your story, right? So diving into my story, like you said, your message. You find the different problems that you had, right?
Mm-hmm.
You replay it. What was the solution? What are you doing to actually overcome it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how are you moving along on your journey? And of course, this is after you've already decided what you want. You're going for a worthy goal. You've decided on a mission and a passion and a purpose. Now you get to take responsibility for everything that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So you're no longer in a victim mindset to where things are just happening to me. I have no control over it. Once you're out of that space, you get to look back and say, okay, what are the problems that I faced? How did I come over it? And by telling that story, that's your value right there. You don't have to figure out, what is my book going to be about? Tell your story. You know,
Mm-hmm.
tell your story. What is my program going to be about? Tell your story. What is my content, my video content on social media going to be about? Tell your story. Once you figure out your story, once you're able to become vulnerable about the things that happen in your life, you're going to be able to offer value in the solutions that you found to your problems. And the most magical part about it is you learn that a lot of people have had similar problems or going through
Mm-hmm.
the similar
Mm-hmm.
problems, or
Mm-hmm.
they're anticipating this problem, you know, that's coming up in their life that you've already been through, and you have no clue that any of that existed until you have the guts to tell your story.
I love that, man. We're all, no matter, you grew up in New York, you're out in LA, I'm down in H Town, Houston down here, way down south. I grew up in around New Orleans. But we come from different places, but we're all just so freaking human. We like to laugh, and we get embarrassed, we get hurt, we want to win. We all deal with the same stuff. And we all are unique. And there are people out there, people watching us right now that maybe they think, yeah, my story is not that great. Well, it's your story, so it is great. Everybody has their own unique story, and because we all are human and we all are so connected, when we do share our story, there are going to be people out there that are going to resonate with whoever it is that's telling their story. And when we come together, and we become vulnerable, as you said, and some of it, and this really speaking to me, because as you're doing a great job telling your story. And let me tell you, those of you watching, this book he wrote is, it's so, I know that you went to college, you studied marketing. I would have thought you studied English, literature, writing, or something. I mean, dude, you're a great writer, man, and that it was masterfully written, this book. But it came across, you just told your story. It wasn't like here's the how to start a business or something like that. Those books are fine, but you just told your story, man. And I just resonated so much with your story. And I know everybody who reads your book, they're gonna love it, man. They're gonna grow. They're gonna learn from it. What would so one thing about that is, for me, I think sometimes when people begin to start thinking about telling their story, and this is where it gets tricky, they start thinking, what story should I tell? Because they haven't, you got to go back to chapter 1, tell the truth, man. You got to tell the truth to yourself sometimes, right? And you got to look in the mirror a little bit and say, hey, this is, even if I want to be this person, this is who I really am, right? And you tell your story right where you are. And if you want to change it, cool, but tell your story, man. I love that. And I think that's how you find your voice. If you're not willing to tell your story and who you are, you can't find your voice.
Right. And before I jump in right there, I wanted to give a shout out to Tyra. She was my girlfriend, and she helped me write the book too. So a lot of that masterful writing, yeah, I do enjoy writing, but she helped me out. And I'll get my butt beat if I did. Shout out.
All right, shout out to Tyra. If I remember from reading the book, she's a Louisiana girl. Is that right?
She is. Yeah.
All right. From around New Orleans, or what part of Louisiana?
She's from St. Francisville.
Oh, no kidding, St. Francisville. So I grew up in a little town called Morgan City. She'll probably know it. I lived in Lafayette, Louisiana for about 10 years. So anyway, cool connection there. A lot of good people down in South Louisiana, So, but whether you're from LA or New York or South Louisiana or Idaho, man, we're all just so freaking human, and we're just so similar. So, well, Tyra did an amazing shout out to Tyra, because I love the book, man, and she did an amazing job helping with whatever stylistic stuff she helps. It's your story, but she helped weave it together really nicely. So, the book kind of ends up with just telling people in the end, let's follow your guts. Let's you want to tell me about the last chapter and how it ends up?
The bonus chapter?
Well, follow your guts. Follow your guts.
Have the guts to follow your guts.
Yeah.
The overall idea about the book is, how can I paraphrase it? Because when you're faced with a decision, we weigh out the good, the bad, the pros, the cons. We don't typically look into what we actually truly want, unfiltered by fear, just pure love. We don't really consider that, because that's airy fairy. It's too optimistic. It's foolish. And what we don't realize is that when you make a decision, you don't know what the other option would be. You don't know how it would have turned out. So if you realize that, and you also realize that at the end of your life, you're going to regret the things that you didn't do, not the things that you did do. You'll be more inspired to go ahead and do the thing that is meaningful to you, because at the end of the day, this life is temporary. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned from that very dark period, in my life in Idaho, is I was faced with my own mortality, being in that dark place, feeling like I didn't have anything, completely obliterating my self-worth. I was faced with the choice of, well, am I gonna just end this now? Am I gonna commit suicide, or am I gonna live a life worth living? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that I did choose to rebuild myself, and this book is the product of what I learned from rebuilding myself mentally, emotionally, all of the above. I want people to overcome fear completely, because I think the biggest thing to be afraid of, that most people are afraid of, is death, but it's inevitable. So to be afraid of something that is inevitable and have that influence how you live your life, I think is a tragedy, for those who do have a dream that's bigger than their job, do have passions and are driven away, but no, no, can't do that. It's a shame and a tragedy. If you're happy, I'm happy. But if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
then this book is all about going for it,
Right.
because at someday you're not gonna have the opportunity to go for it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
inevitable.
Yeah. I love it, man, and that's what this whole book's about, really. It's we only get one at bat at this thing, right? I mean, we're here now, and you talk about saying no to okay, right? Like, if we're going to be here and we're going to play the game, like, why not just dream the wildest of all dreams, and even if we don't achieve them, go down swinging,
Right,
like you said, at the end of your life, I don't think we're going to look back and say, man, I tried to start that business or I tried to do that and it didn't work. But people regret what they didn't try. They
right,
regret the things they never tried. And I love the fact that you're putting this out there to the world. Basically that, there's a lot of people who just aren't happy, man. They're not happy with where they are, and they're kind of stuck in mediocrity. And this whole book is all about, hey, you don't have to live that way anymore.
nah,
You can go to the top of the mountain, right? You can move onward and get to the top of the mountain. So, man, I really appreciate you writing this book, and I love personal development books, and this honestly, I've been reading these books for ages, and this is a classic, brother. This is one I think that people are going to be reading for a long time. And so all of you out there tonight watching, go get Talmadge's book. We got the link in the comments. My daughter Brooke posted the link to Amazon. It's right there. So y'all go get this book, order it before you go to bed tonight. Or if you watch this, we got a lot of people watching on the replay in the next couple of days. Y'all go get this book. It's fire stuff, man. It's really good. So Talmadge, man, it's been really good hanging out with. I loved reading your book. It's been great hanging out with you here tonight. And we're gonna have to do this again. And I know you're out in LA. I'm in Houston, but we're gonna have to hook up somewhere sometime. And well, I guess we'll see each other at the top of the mountain, huh?
absolutely, absolutely. It's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. I'm so grateful for you inviting me on, and just chopping it up with me, bro. We definitely got to do it again.
Love it, man. All right, good. We're gonna sign off here, but good night, everybody. And Talmadge, I'll stay on and talk to you for a minute here, buddy. Good night,
Listen,
everybody. Y'all take care.
love, love.